Did you watch that video, Sam?
Yeah, I watched the first third. I was able to get through before I. It's been
Okay.
busy all day shopping.
Yeah, I don't. I got about to say. I was. Tell me when I need to shut up. Fine. Right on. The city of Montgomery is trying to access every camera, private and public. Did you see that? That's actually, I'm watching the video right now. I have it up on my screen. It's silent, but when I looked up, that's what was written across the screen. The city of Montgomery, Alabama is trying to access every private and public camera to gather in personal data to predict the likelihood that an individual will commit a crime and using the data to guide law enforcement decisions. No, that's fine. If Sam has a thing said to Andrew, you should have done that online, like live. All right. There you go. Yes.
I'm ready.
I'm always ready. Oh, you want me to say it?
How are we doing out there?
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
What's that? What's the issue?
There we go. Now we're good. I moved a window.
Oh, I don't.
All that work getting everything switched up and looking everybody's cropped out, and then when I went to make everything go live on Facebook on the backside, it was, yeah, there we go. Anyways, now we're live, we're here, and everyone can see everyone's faces.
Awesome.
I may be a nerd, but I'm not the greatest nerd. I'm sorry.
So you're our nerd.
Yep. Everyone
that
has to have one.
That makes you the greatest nerd. Yeah.
So, for those of you that didn't listen in last week, we got a special guest tonight. Sam, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh man, I wanted to introduce Sam.
Oh, go ahead and introduce.
Okay.
Yep, my name's Samuel Boehler. I am a software developer turned security architect, and I have interest in all things economics, libertarianism, morality, and ethics, and yeah, just along for the ride.
I do gotta say, you've probably got the prettiest face out of everybody here.
I disagree.
Looking at the stream over here, like you definitely look way more professional than me, for sure.
Yeah, he came ready to roll. No kidding.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Absolutely.
I thought, I found out tonight that that he's actually what did you say? You're English German, right?
Yeah, my last name Boehler is a German surname, and but most of my ancestry is from England.
I gotcha. So I just said the Irish-looking guy, right? Because the red beard, but turns out he looks Icelandic, and I didn't know that either.
Yeah, well, it's always been a weird thing though, just having like so much red hair in my beard and more of a dirty blonde up there. Not having my beard and my hair matched color, it was a point of frustration in my 20s.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Before we get it, one thing about this, about these names, I think that everybody who knows me will appreciate. So my name's Shaner, but I'm named after my granddad on my mom's side. Actually, like I don't care my father's name. I didn't know him, but his last name was Hartkopf, and Hartkopf is a German last name, and what it means is hard-headed. So anyway, yeah.
I feel it. So a bowler, if I'm correct, it means little hill, like a little hill to die on.
Right, right.
I mean, at least you're willing to die on a hill.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's fine. And then Johnson means dick.
yeah, Johnson means dick, but actually, my mom's side is Zilch, and we actually got. We started when I was in Alaska when my wife was pregnant, doing the whole ancestry thing, like tracing lineage back and all that other good stuff. And then during COVID, when I was sitting at home with my daughter, me and my mom actually traced back, and so her family's German is all get out, and we traced it back to the von Zulch family from
Oh
Germany,
wow.
somewhere in Bavaria. I'd have to go pull the damn tree all the way back. We got to the point where Ancestry's like, give us $3 million and we'll let you read the stone tablets from the whatever years or whatever it is. And then I was like, yeah, it's not that important. Um,
That's really cool, actually, though.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So
So I've got it there one of these days. We'll finish it. We started with wife's side too, and I don't remember where we're at with that, but she's Irish as all get out. So
on all of my grandfather's side, who they're all Irish, and so and then my grandmother is just pure American. Well, that means a mix of everything. So
yeah, the true melting pot, man. The true melting pot. So I think that was totally not even planned, but I think that's a great segue into tonight's topic. Sam wanted to discuss here. What was it? Smart megacity something.
Yeah, it was something that came up. Someone that actually messaged me about it, and I thought it was an interesting topic, and mentioned it to Mike. But yeah, it's something I actually had already been thinking about a couple of years back, and even started working on a potential like book story. One of the things I like to do is kind of forecast the future and figure out how us humans will try to solve those problems that will be coming around the corner.
Yeah.
And so watching how like face recognition technology has been progressing, how license plate recognition technology has been progressing, it seemed pretty evident that in the not too distant future, we'll be living in a world where everything is being tracked, and there's good and bad that goes along with it. But it's always, well, it's kind of like the nuclear bomb. Yeah, maybe it could potentially save us from an asteroid, Armageddon, right?
Yeah.
But more than likely, it's going to probably be used to kill everyone in the world. So, yeah. And so one of the thoughts that crossed my mind is like, if you live in a world where every single time you leave your house, there is a camera tracking you and looking at your face and knowing who you are and seeing where you go, where does any sense of privacy go at that point? You can't go anywhere. You can't go to work. You can't go visit friends without all of that being cataloged in a database. And now, especially more recently, with the way that AI has been coming along, making it even easier to try to get insights from that information. I was trying to think, what type of world, how will people kind of rebel against that? Because that's what human beings are known best for. If we don't like a state of affairs, we'll figure out a way around it.
Yep.
So the thought I had for kind of this idea of a book, so the world was going to be just that, where it's not just the government, but it's also private industry. And this can come about so easily too. Like a lot of us probably have a, Simply Safe or Blink camera or other type of security camera on our homes at this point, monitoring our packages as they come in for Christmas. Some have more than others, but it's already the case that the footage of some of those security systems are being shared without the knowledge of the homeowners. And so it can be as easy as an office that has CCTV, not really as closed circuit as they think, and being put on the cloud and being shared. And if they don't know exactly what they've agreed to, maybe it's the company that's providing them that cloud service for their security footage is sharing that footage with other companies or selling it for money in order to make more money off of it. That's a very easy way where government's not even involved and it could happen. But kind of like with Twitter recently, as we've seen, the government is very interested in getting involved in private companies and using the data that they have in order to increase their own capabilities. I could see the government doing the same thing with those types of security cameras and using, again, face detection, being able to track any person at any time, anywhere. So the world that I had started crafting would be where people essentially use masks all the time. That's the one thing that they would have fought for, is the ability to completely cover their face. And this was pre-pandemic when I first thought of it. So I was like, that might be a tough sell, trying to get everyone to be able to wear a mask in the West. I mean, you get it over in the East, but in the West, people, or if you wear a mask and go into a gas station, you're going to have a hard time. But things have changed substantially. So now this idea of everyone wearing a mask, not too far-fetched.
No, the pandemic worked out perfectly for you.
Thanks. You were in on it.
Right?
You were with Bill Gates. Where were you during
there we
201?
Go. And so one of the things is, I remember in like the cryptocurrency world, in the sense of trying to wash crypto, in the sense of you put it all in place and then you spread it back out again, and you kind of, no one knows like which ones came from where to begin with. And so this idea of kind of like people washing, where people will all go into these big areas that have no cameras on the inside, and then they all come out on the outside, but they all have to wear similar clothing and similar things enough to be able to fool really sophisticated AI that might be able to tell even subtle differences and just height between people, even if they look exactly the same. Again, far enough into the future where this AI could be trained to that level, and the resolution on the cameras is that great, because a lot of security camera footage is a lot better these days, no longer potato quality.
Oh, for sure.
Hey, Ben, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
I saw Andrew's comment. I turned my mic on.
All right.
Thank you, though.
All right, keep going, Andrew. I mean, Sam.
Yeah, and so I imagine this kind of world where you've got these big spaces that people go in and mix up, where there's no camera footage, and then they come out so that they can kind of mess with the systems trying to track them, so that they can try to get some places, or even have, for instance, underground tunnels that they go to in order to convene, and then making sure that there's no cameras trying to do certain type of like electronic detection for any type of electricity, and then going really lo-fi in order to kind of regain that level of privacy and individualism, because that would be the only way to really feel any level of freedom. And so anyways, that's kind of where my world building stopped, and I was just kind of sad thinking, how fast this is kind of barreling towards us.
It's go ahead, Ben.
No, I was gonna say, we talked about it was last week or the week before, about how rapidly everything's going, and I mean, just the last 20 years alone, we went from Windows 3.1 on DOS, run win.exe / whatever, and I don't even remember it. It feels like it was that long ago, but it wasn't even 2 decades ago we were running that. And technology has just gone so far, so fast, so quick that, I mean, they're literally, the sky's the limit for anything, good, bad, indifferent, for privacy, against privacy. There's, that was just a couple weeks ago we said that. Is like, what do we do? What do you do?
What's interesting that ties into all of this, and it is the robocops in San Francisco. You know what I'm talking about? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, so
no, I did not see that.
Okay, so the San Francisco City Council authorized the use of robotic, what do you call it? Robotic cops, robocops. Really, they were on this little belt. They roll around. It's just like something you would have seen on a movie 15 years ago, And so there was, and it was approved. They're built, they're designed there. They roll around the city. There was public backlash, so much so that I was actually just reading the article here a few minutes ago. San Francisco police bans the use of RoboCop killer robots to fight crime after backlash. So, a vote that allowed San Francisco police to use robots to incapacitate dangerous suspects has been banned following backlash and warnings over the automation of policing.
So who's building these robots?
When you're automating the police and the technology's there to do that, when you have the systems in place to track your every move, it is dystopia, right? I mean, at that point, there is nothing. So, and what I like, back to your book, that I hope you finish that, because I'm very, very interested to see where. I mean, it's you've got all the framework there, but I've been writing a novel for 30 years and I never get past the first chapter. And, so, I mean, you've got all the framework there. Just a great, and it's interesting to me how sellable Brave New World type fiction is now, considering how authoritarian society wants to be. Like, it's weird how, like Hunger Games, it's weird how like that sells. Like, there's a craving for human rebellion, like you said, but in human life, like in real life, it seems society is like inviting more, more control, more. I can't imagine. I can't wait until they start, because right now we talk about these smart cities, and a lot of people are going to be like, not even believe us. I mean, it's there. It's not. This isn't a fake thing. This is a very, very real thing. But a lot of people are going to hear this and be like, "Oh, you're exaggerating. That's not it." Then they'll look into it and they'll be like, "Well, I can." Like you said, there's good in everything. The nuclear bomb. There's good in everything, and they're going to see only the good in it because they're programmed to see this, to see what they're sold. And I don't know. That's scarier to me than nothing the state does. Actually scares me, because they can't do anything really without consent. This is it's an argument that some people make, that we exist in anarchy already, and that this is the state of anarchy. And I don't like that. But when I really sit down and deal with it, nothing the government does. I hate the idea that the government is made up for the people. I hate those. But it really is it's allowed. Like, they don't do anything to us that we don't allow, because they were going to use robocops, and San Francisco citizens said, no, you can't do that. And so they had to back. No, they will. They'll push it through. But for right now, when the citizens say no, the government will back off. But the citizens won't say no. What do you guys think of that? And that's what I'm not asking you, how do we fight the state? I'm asking you, how do we get people to realize we need to fight the state from.
How do you get people to realize that fighting the state is civil disobedience and there's nothing wrong with it, by standing up and telling your government no?
How do you get them to say, we don't want you to put cameras up everywhere and monitor every move we make, and apply social credit scores and cut off, when we go to
ESG,
electric vehicles,
all that other shit that's out there getting started
when we
now?
go to electric vehicles and electric currency, when this is so interesting, because they try to make it like how they really are brilliant. People love to paint. George Bush is this idiot that went to Harvard. They love to paint these people as idiots, but they're all actually very, very, very brilliant people. And I wasn't always thinking they were all in this big widespread agenda of messaging, but they are. If you look at how they divide people, the message on the left, the message on the right, to come to the outcome, the center message, the overall, what they're trying to sell, so we need. Okay, it's gonna take me a while to get back to this. So I'm just gonna drop it for a minute. I'm gonna, because it'll take me a little bit to piece it all together, and I can't keep people that long. So
I mean, you hit on part of it. One of the largest problems we face in the 21st century is some will refer to it as the indoctrination of our youth in the public school system with the Department of Education. Others are going to say, well, people are just too fucking stupid, or there's all sorts of labels or reasonings. But at the end of the day, to me, in my eyes, it's just a true lack of understanding of basic human rights and freedom. And somewhere between the 50s and today, whatever changed with schooling and education and all this other stuff is what put us to where we're at now. Sam?
I think unfortunately it really requires discomfort it takes a lot of discomfort for people to be able to understand the problem with any particular issue. And I think like when it comes to things like free speech, when I was in high school, it was the people on the left who were bigger proponents of free speech at the time, and civil liberties in general. And that's because we were underneath the Republican administration, and they saw the importance of it because they had a lot of discomfort whenever they wanted to speak their mind and having Republicans shut them down. And then right after that, it went the other way. And now it's mainly people on the right who are the bigger proponents of free speech and the people on the left shutting them down. And so it's not a left versus right thing. It's more of whoever has the power or control. And so the thing is, if the people who think like you are in control, you're feeling comfortable because they're not going to do anything to you. You think like them. But if you don't think like the people who are in power, then things are going to get uncomfortable, and you're going to realize, oh, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have had that power to begin with. That was maybe not the smartest idea. And, unfortunately, it's often too late for a lot of the small things, but they add up over time. And once it hits some type of critical mass of enough of a authoritarian apparatus, people begin to rebel in different ways. I at least hope they do. It doesn't happen always, but they try.
That's a smart observation, and it actually goes back to the point I was trying to make, though, because people have short memories. Mm-hmm. So you have you say, okay, Obama's in charge now, and he's going to mandate Obamacare, blah 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 blah, right? And then you have the right screaming he shouldn't have the power to do this. Then the left. Then after him, Bush is in power and he does something, and the left's like, he should never have that power, right? He should never have that power. We shouldn't have given it to Obama. And I know there's not one specific instance. I'm just making an analogy or an example. So they hate Bush. They hate Trump so much. And the right loves Trump so much, and they hated Obama so much that they forgot that Obama shouldn't have had that power because they love that Trump has it. And then then Biden will come along, and they forgot that Trump shouldn't have had that power because they like that Biden has it because he can do what. So they work. It's a really carefully crafted seesaw, where it's always there. It's the shell game. They're always shifting things around. So it's so hard to reach that critical mass because they do such a good job at dividing the teams up. They do such a good job at getting people riled up for the mascot, and people don't. You're right. It's uncomfort. It's going to take a level of discomfort. It's going to take. That's why that conversation that you like to allude to, Ben, from the very beginning, when I said I think for us to get anywhere, to make any real difference, and the collapse is going to happen, and the faster it happens, probably the better.
Yeah.
And that's why, because until it happens, until you get there and there's real pain, I don't think that there's going to be any real change. And that's why when we have things like, if we're discussing universal basic income, or if we're discussing whatever else, anything that's out there, I say go for it, get it, do whatever you're going to do, because the system's weighted anyway. So the more you wait it, eventually it collapses. And I would rather it collapse under the weight of taxation and wealth distribution and that sort of thing. So at least you can say, hey, when you're rebuilding, when you're coming out of it, you can say, look, these are the things that happened. And at least you have the evidence. They're going to ignore it, and you're going to have to fight to see what's next anyway. But anyway, that's my opinion.
Because the argument's always going to be like, well, yeah, we did those things, but we didn't do them the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
We can argue that I think it was the Ming Dynasty in 1300 China, one of the first recorded fiat currencies in the history of man. Well, they just did it wrong, and that's why modern monetary theory with the U.S. dollar is going to solve it.
That's funny, because the Ming Dynasty lasted 2,000 years.
It was actually toward the
200, not 1,000.
Yeah, well, however long it lasted is irrelevant. It was one of the longest dynasties in China, or Chinese history.
I'm looking it up. I was there.
And part of it, the whole transition to a fiat currency away from just bartered goods was, philosophically, there's always differences and arguments and that shit. But long story short, it was there's a lot of people who believe that the start of the fiat currency led to the collapse of the dynasty, which ultimately led to the collapse of the Chinese civilization back then, which ultimately led to communist China as we know it today, if you really want to start taking big jumps and leaps in history.
Works is an interesting term to use because they all work. All the systems work.
No, everything works until it doesn't.
Well, it all works as designed a lot of times. Like it works for someone. Like if you go to China, those palaces, they're beautiful. They're still there, from 1300, still standing. And the people that lived in them, they lived great lives, And all the people in the right around it lived great lives. Now the people that had to build the palaces, it didn't really work so great for them, So Hitler lived a pretty good life, and the Nazis lived a pretty good life. The everyday German and the Jews, not so much. But systems work. Like they work for who they're designed to work for. Like even now, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, they live really decent lives. Even when the collapse happens, they'll live really decent lives until they don't. So I don't know. It's interesting, and it's interesting to me how things change but don't change. With the fall of the dynasties and so all the way across the ocean, and then the fall of Rome, and then the rise of the kingdom, and then the fall of the kingdom, and then it's here. Really, it's the same. And then it's always the same thing. And no matter how you type it up, no matter what you say, no matter the equality, like you and I don't live the same life as Elon Musk. We don't have the same.
I'm still waiting for Elon to respond to my tweet and put me on the spaceship to Mars because fuck this place. I want to go. I'm off. Let me off planet Earth.
They'll send you there, I think, but then that's just going to be the Mars.
Me and the aliens, yes.
Yeah. Send me to Olympus Mons.
I'm getting awful nihilistic tonight. This conversation is let's change it. Let's get back to some more serious.
Let's
talk about like what are the benefits, that they will end up touting. A great example of why they would want to track the license plates. So we all receive the Amber Alerts on our phones.
Exactly.
We understand exactly how bad and how troubling that can be. And any one of us could say if our child was kidnapped and they had a license plate, we would want this technology in place to be able to find that rat bastard so that we could get our child back before harm came to them. And that's an easy trap to fall into. And that, I think Mike had kind of referenced the quote in our own chats recently, in the sense of those who trade their liberty for security deserve neither and will lose both.
Right.
And so I think that's exactly the way that it's going to go. Unfortunately, I don't think, even if you could convince everybody of that it's really going to prevent it from happening, just because kind of like the Jurassic Park movie, we always just ask if we could, not if we should. And so we have the capability. And so there's people who want to see what we can do with it and test it out. And so it's not going to be until gross violations of people's privacy and hackers trading your real-time location to people for money that things are going to really get dicey.
Well, data, I think it was 2020, 2019, 21. Sometime in the last 3 or 4 years, data was listed as the most profitable industry in the world. What people like, what their interests are, and not even by you personally, just by your demographic of, whether it's race, age, education level, income level, location you live, those 5 big factors, and selling that to marketing agencies. That's why Facebook's a $1 billion industry, 100%, because they have it all, and that's how they make their money. That's their data that you give to them in return for use of their platform, and then they use it for advertisement, and it works. Shit. I started an apparel business not knowing anything about clothing with my 2 friends, 3 years ago, and now it's one of them, it's literally his full-time job. That's all he does, and it's TikTok, Instagram, social media, Facebook that's it. Like that's how we marketed it, and it literally worked. Like, dude lives off of it now.
Hey, that just brought up something because you know how my mind's so random, and something you said. So you said TikTok, and so TikTok is out. Yeah. So I saw on, I don't even know what news show last night, but I saw on some news show last night where on the latest Twitter file, the latest dump, how the FBI was using Twitter to control elections in like third world. It wasn't like a big country, but like, and it wasn't like Brazil or whatever. It was,
wasn't just the FBI. It was the CIA over in the Middle
East. It was
East.
The CIA. Yeah. I say one word and I mean the government. It doesn't.
All of them. 3 letters.
I say Montevallo PD and I mean the entire I mean all of it. So,
the GOV.
Yeah, exactly. So, the GOV. That's right.
The GOV and NGOs.
So they were using the Twitter to control the elections and to change the culture in some of these countries, and it's all documented. It's there. This is what happened. There were conversations. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I find it so almost just brilliant. I'm almost in awe now how they can be like, TikTok is so dangerous. They're going to change the culture. They're using this to brainwash your kid as they're doing it, man. I mean, as they're literally doing it, and they have the balls to just come out. It all ties into the same thing, though. The technology is people. I sound like a real old man, and you guys are both techies, but I'm just like, it's going to be the end of us. It really is going to blow us whole.
You have to remember from the U.S. government's perspective, it's okay when it's doing it. It's not okay when China wants to do it. That's the key there.
Kind of like that saying a couple years back. It's okay if I beat my kid, but don't you beat my kid.
Right.
Hey, do you guys want to have a difficult conversation for a minute, like a difficult question? Difficult for me, anyway. Okay. Sure. All right. So I saw this question on Twitter the other day, and I think we're all in agreement on the outline, on the overall topic. I think we're in agreement. But if a doctor diagnoses a child with depression mm-hmm. and prescribes a sex change to that child, and as a cure for depression, and the parent agrees, does the government have the right to overrule that doctor, child, and parent? Tough, huh?
As a parent, I don't think anyone on the face of the earth could ever convince me that that's something necessary for my kid. So I'm biased
I'm biased as hell. I think we're all biased. Yeah. That's why it's hard.
So my thoughts go like this. In the animal kingdom, there are many animals that are born and are just left on their own immediately, and they have to figure their entire survival out immediately. But human beings, we are born and we are very dependent, very, very dependent upon our parents, or at least others, in order to survive until we get to a point where we can be self-sufficient. And, we kind of by law have come up with this idea that it's going to be, an age of a majority. And then at that point, you're an adult and you can do all the things except for drink and rent cars and go gambling and apparently not do anything except die for your country, maybe.
Exactly. Go to jail. You can go to jail and go to war.
Yeah, go to jail. So, but because of that relationship where you're a dependent to start off with before you become an independent. Uh-huh. Now, I've actually had my own thoughts in the sense of, obviously a child can emancipate themselves in order to become independent in a way. And maybe that would be a kind of cool rite of passage where everyone kind of goes through it, and usually it's just a formality, but then occasionally some people would either try to do it themselves, or the parents would try to do it for them if they didn't want to be responsible for their kid anymore because they don't believe they should be, etc. And then use that instead as kind of the criteria for when someone is legally responsible for themselves. Right. And so using that kind of
but in this question, remember,
I'm getting there. So using that kind of framing, the thing is, I think ultimately it is the parent who is responsible for the child and makes those decisions. And so even though I would disagree probably with the that type of prognosis for that condition, the thing is, I also understand that those parents, it's their responsibility, whether I agree with it or not, to kind of figure out what they think is best for their child. Yeah. And also they're using a doctor who is a trained professional. And so the thing is, although I may disagree with them, they may be absolutely right on this particular issue in that particular context. It may not, it may not be the correct solution 100% of the time, but maybe just in this case. And so the thing is, I think for me, if the parents decide to do it, and that's, and they're not being,
they're thinking they're doing what's in the best interest.
This is not like just reckless disregard for the welfare of the child. And I think that it would be improper for the government to step in that case. It's hard to say that, though. Yeah,
I agree with you, and it is awful to agree. I don't want to agree with you so badly. My principles make me, but I hate it. I hate it so much, and I had to think about this a long time. And when I come across one like this, I try to look at it. If I come into my mind's kind of made up, I try to look for a way to falsify it. I look to go the opposite direction. Like, okay, I think that no, you should not be allowed to get your child a sex change. That's what I think in my mind, and I'm like, no. So I see the question, and I'm like, no, absolutely not. And then I think about it a little bit, and I'm like, okay, let me look at it from the opposite stance. The parents think they're doing what's right. They've consulted a doctor. Everybody's there. I mean, they're trying to help their hurting child. So then I think about, okay, so I'll go if government's going to exist, they're there to protect the innocent. Okay, well, who is, and then I'm like, well, okay, I'm really trying really hard to come up with the answer that no, they can't do this, right? And so then I'm like, but who is government to say what's better? And then I'm like, okay, well, take the emotional part out of it and apply it to something I like something I can agree with. So if people don't want to get their child a certain medicine because they think the medicine's harmful, or if they don't want to get their kid the COVID vaccine, that was easy for me, and the government says we know what's right for your child. Then I'm like, well, if it applies to that, and the government thinks this is the right way, and they're saying this is the right way, and everybody's coming at these people with a witch hunt saying this is the right way, and you're not doing that, so you're going to jail. It has to apply all the way. It can't just be what I agree with. And I have never struggled so hard with one. Like usually I can just justify it right away, even though I don't agree with it. I can say I don't like this. I don't think it should be. I don't think you should do it. But yes, I think that's the right thing. Yeah. I'm usually very consistent on it. On this one, it took me a lot to get there. So I really appreciated that answer. That both of you. I mean, I get where you're coming from, Ben. It's
it's one of those things that people they have to realize that we can't solve every problem and then also bring about that solution immediately.
Oh, absolutely.
It trying to change society on a dime is very difficult. And so unfortunately there kind of does have to be this slow evolutionary process of society. And I mean, to use another example, one that a lot of people may be torn on, it would be something like male circumcision here in the US. When it comes to female genital mutilation overseas, we're very consistent on it.
Right.
Some people here in the US would consider circumcision male genital mutilation. Others don't, and still practice to this day. And so the thing is it a medically necessary procedure? A lot of people say no. But there, at least a long time ago, there was a lot of information about how it is beneficial for the health of the child as they grow up and everything. And so, again, there's going to be people who are doing it maybe for religious reasons. There's going to be people doing it because they think it is for the health of the child. There are people who are going to not be doing it for religious reasons, and people not doing it because they think it's going to be detrimental to the health or the well-being of their child. And the thing is, yeah, over time, you're going to probably have kids who grow up that were circumcised who may think, I wish I wasn't, and I'm not going to do that to my child. You're going to maybe find some people who go the other way, but over time, over the long run, is when you'll see where society kind of goes. Maybe they keep doing it for a long time. Maybe they stop. Maybe more people start doing it because maybe we do find out something that says that it is incredibly beneficial for some new type of STD coronavirus. Who knows?
You know what's funny is this is for some reason amongst libertarians, this is the like this and one other, and I'm not even going to get into it because I don't feel like listening to it from other people, but this is like the most controversial topic there is. Circumcision is like, I mean, people will go to war over this shit. It's really, 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 they get really heated about it. I am having a child, and she's 8 weeks pregnant today, or a couple of days ago, and so we had this conversation recently. If it's a boy, are we going to circumcise? And
okay. Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. And so I said, I think so, and here's why. I'm impacted deeply by this. An event happened in my. It's what you said. Yeah, there's different reasons, and when I was a kid, not a kid, when I was an older teenager, this guy that was also an older teenager that was in our group had to go and get circumcised for some reason, like he had an effect, something I don't know really. I didn't really go into why he had to do it, but he had to do it, and that seems like the most horrible and awful thing that could happen, and it hurt me to think about, and I had nightmares about it. I didn't really, but I think about it, I remember it to this day. I was thinking how brutal it would be if I had to go do it now, and I would rather just and I was also saying, that's my opinion. I was like, you know what, if it were me, I can't remember when I was a baby, so I would rather just not have to face that. And then I said also, though, I can see the opposite side of that too, because although I can't remember what happened, and we can't really know, like we can say that we can't really know what animals think, and we can't really know what babies think, until somebody can actually tell us what they think. We can put our best data out and say this is what they think, but you don't really know, like somebody comes and rips you out and they take you and then they cut off how that affects that baby's mind, like how that can traumatize them. So I do see it. I can just say that I don't know how it traumatized me, and I'm a fucked up person, but I just know that I wouldn't want it to happen to me now.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you had to choose between just the dichotomy of having it done as a baby where you can't remember, or later on as a young adult or adult where you could, some people may prefer when they were a baby. But then I would say there's also the third option, which is never at all. And for those people, then they never had to deal with it as a baby or as an adult.
That's true. And that's a good point. I see it. Like, I really do see it. I just still also saw the pain.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to derail the conversation onto that subject, but I thought it was an interesting kind of analogy to that one. Because, it is one of those situations where, parents are going to make mistakes. Every parent makes mistakes, but and unfortunately, some parents are not actually interested in doing what's right for their child or for their well-being. And I think, to me, that's actually kind of the more
that's a hard
problematic scenario, the more difficult one, in the sense of, if a parent leaves their kid in a car, is that when the government should step in, kind of scenario? And I think,
where does the right of the parent as the parent stop?
I think
the well-being of that kid trumps the rights of the parent. That's ultimately the question. Whether it's
that is exactly it. That's exactly where we were talking about, even from the very get-go, when you were talking about the treating the depression. And so the difficulty really comes down to, how do we decide which cases are like so blatant where you have to go, someone needs to step in. And so I think the way that I've kind of tried to make sense of it is this: at the end of the day, we all have to be responsible for our own actions. So, like, using the kind of depression example real quick again, if someone is suicidal and then you prevent them from getting harmed, or from following through, and you harm them in that attempt. So maybe they're trying to jump off a building and then you catch them, but then they slam against the building and break a bunch of bones. So you thought you were doing what was right. You thought that they probably didn't want to end their life, but were just going through an episode. But you've now kind of gone against their consent, their autonomy, in order to stop them from doing what they were deciding to do, or at least apparently deciding to do. And so the question is, are you willing to pay the consequences for that? Are you willing to pay the medical bills for the injuries that you've caused them? Are you willing to possibly go into jail for obstructing them in some way in their life? And if you feel like the answer is yes, because it's worth it, because that's what's right, then go ahead and do it. And so I think in that same sense, if you see a child in a car on a hot day with the windows up, and you say, this is not wrong, I'm going to break the glass with, whatever I happen to have in my pocket, my keys, and I'm going to get that child out and save them from overheating to death. Knowing that maybe in some jurisdiction they'll find against you for breaking property and attempted kidnapping to go along with it. But you're like, you know what?
Yeah, sure.
I can sit with that. I wouldn't want that to happen, but I'm okay with living with that. Then that's what you need to do. Yeah. And so likewise, I suppose that if you know of a parent who is gonna transition their child per doctors, and you feel that there's some way that you would want to involve yourself, knowing that there's probably going to be consequences to trying to do that. I suppose that is your prerogative. I think for me in that particular situation, there's not as much of an urgency or compelling need. I don't think it's the right decision, but I also know that I'm wrong a lot in life.
Right.
So in that particular scenario, I'm not confident enough about being right on it that I'm willing to intercede. While in a situation like a baby in a car, I know I'm right on that particular one enough to intercede.
No, that's perfectly put. There's no reason to even try to expand on that because you said it. I mean, I agree completely. I agree 100%. I think it's actually easier to say where the government should intervene. Like for me, based on where the government should intervene when a parent's putting their child in harm, because I think it's that same thing. I think it's the thing where they're purposely putting their child in harm's way. They're not looking out for the best interest. Because I don't believe that we own our children. I believe we're the caretaker of our children until they can take care of themselves. I believe as caretakers, we have responsibilities to make the best decisions for them that we can. And I think if we're making the best decisions for us, or what we think are the best decisions for us instead of for them, or at their expense, then that it's time to somebody has a right to intervene, because somebody has to. If somebody is willing to be the caretaker of that child, then they should do that. So I think that where I maybe have a harder time with it is because I'm an anarchist. And so if there is no government,
who does it?
Who does it?
But that's the answer. It's when individuals. It's when
I agree. That's what I was going to say. I mean, that's the answer I was getting to anyway. But it's still and I'm glad you said it actually instead of me, because that's the question people ask you, and then you go into the other conversation. So it's funny how we started on smart cities and ended up at circumcision, and
yeah. So back to that, I do kind of want to talk about the smart cities things because
I don't anymore.
So let's cut the tip off those smart towers.
Well, so the part of the reason is that right now the Federal Reserve in New York is actually piloting a CBDC right now in our own country, in New York City. Like they're piloting out how a central bank digital currency would work. Yeah. And part of a smart city and a smart world, if you will, as they're labeling it now, is that the central everything revolves around how you trade goods and services. And if you can't do that without it being tracked, if I don't have cash to pay you, and I can only pay you in Bitcoin,
yeah,
but that Bitcoin can be tracked because the government owns it. Now what?
Yeah, so what really I think happens there is not what they want to happen. I think people go to a barter system. I think, that's probably a better way to get into what I want to be than what they realize. What I was trying to, when I was rambling earlier and couldn't find my feed, and I fucking lost it again, just forget it. I was not meant to talk about this. So if the with the social credit scores, with the digital currency, with robotic police, having this, as Sam said, it's not the technology already exists. It's not if we should do it, it's can we do it. What do you think? Do you think that? So I try to, as someone who is an active voice for the liberty movement, I try to be very careful and not dive into conspiracy theories. I never really give I mean, obvious ones like COVID being, Wuhan, and then have the vaccines aren't good. Those things I'm fine with, but like I try not to, because if every conspiracy theory, if you believe in every conspiracy theory, you don't believe in anything, right? And some of these conspiracy theorists, they're professional. I think that they are the conspiracy theory. They're there to discredit the movement. So I try to just stay away from it because the government does enough awful verified things that like just are on the record that's enough, right? But then you think about this. So they have the technology to do all these things, and they have robotic police. They have the smart poles. They have everything. I mean, they've been tracking us. Tracking our license plate with cameras for years and years and years and years and years and years anyway. I mean, I got a ticket from New Jersey 4 months after I was in New Jersey for doing something. I mean, for speeding or running a red light. I don't remember what I did, whatever, some law that they thought I should obey that I didn't. And they sent me a ticket in the mail, and I used to get them in Santa Monica all the time. So they've had the technology for years, and they had it. Do you think that things like COVID, or do you think it's possible that things like COVID, I think that COVID probably was I know COVID was a real thing. I had it twice. I don't think that COVID was a hoax, and I don't think it was planned to put on society. But once it was there, and once people were scared and they saw that they could use it, do you think that they used it to see who would obey and who wouldn't?
Never let a good crisis go to waste. It's one of the number.
I mean, does that make
politics?
Sense, what I'm saying? Because it's starting to make a lot of sense to me.
So it's kind of a combination of what Ben just said, of not letting a good crisis go to waste, but also don't attribute to malice what can easily be explained by or like stupidity or something. The thing is, it's both. Just like people are very nuanced, they can be amazing, great people in certain areas of their life, and they can be horrible monsters in other areas. Look no further than America's Dad. What was his name? I can't. Why is he not coming to my mind? The Jello. God, why is he not coming to my mind? Someone help me here.
I don't know, man.
It's sitcom.
With the alien.
No, the one who got accused of giving women, actually got convicted of giving women drinks and making them fall asleep, and very popular.
Date rape?
Yeah, what's?
I have no idea. I don't know.
Oh my God, I can't believe his name's not coming to me at the moment. You know, like. Do
you remember where it was at?
One of the most famous.
I'm Googling.
I am too. Bill Cosby?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby. Yeah.
I can't. That's so funny. Like everybody knows, and everybody knows.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone knows that name, but it just was not coming to me. Thank you.
Same. I mean, I was like, what is he talking about? I know people. Yeah. People are watching this like Cosby, you idiots.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everyone. So, Bill Cosby. The thing is, he was putting on a show and putting on such a very positive and just family friendly, family forward type thing, while doing egregious evil things elsewhere. And so the thing is, I with the government as large as it is, with all the different organizations that make it up, there are certainly elements that are completely incompetent at everything that they do, but then there are certain elements that are very competent at what they do and know exactly how to take advantage of a good crisis. And so I think during COVID, there were definitely elements at both at play.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think that as it wore on, I guess really so my question was with the, they're going to, at some point, these things are going to be unleashed, regardless of if the public likes it or not.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if we're going through, because COVID was it was like living in an alternate universe. It was like, I mean, things just were, it was so weird. Things like were just evident. Like so everybody knows that the cloth mask doesn't work, right? Everybody knows that, even if you still could, even if you would still think the other masks work, but everybody knew the cloth mask didn't work early, like really early.
Yeah.
But people would still be riding around by themselves in the car with their cloth mask, defending these things that just normal people wouldn't have defended. It was so weird. I mean, it was just like living in the twilight zone.
I literally saw someone rolling around with a mask. It was earlier today or
I saw
yesterday.
one the other day.
Still today.
Yeah.
Like
it's so.
And it's a cheetah print, not some.
When you see these people so vehemently defend the regime, right? And then you see other people, and finally some mainstream people start coming around, but not a lot, start coming out and fighting it. I just wonder if we're going through a series of tests, so if they know how big of a clampdown they're going to have to put, like, because they're building the.
I thought you said you didn't want to jump on the conspiracy theory train too much.
Well, no, I prefaced it by that I usually don't, because this is weird. It's really weird. And they're building the concentration camps. They're calling them something else. I can't think of it right now. But they're building them, and it's not smart cities. I want to say smart cities, but they're building, what do they call them? The same thing they did in China, where they weld the doors. They call them. Yeah. They don't call them concentration
quarantine
camps.
Or
well, yeah, they call it. Yeah. They're calling it something such as that. But they're building them, and FEMA's building them. And so these things are existing, and you have to wonder. I mean, it's weird. Is it Red Dawn? But the U.S. are the Russians, and are we going to have to go? There's no mountain for us to go to, because even the trees are poles and the birds aren't real. What do we do?
Birds are real. I haven't heard that one in a minute.
That's
yeah. I think the thing that gives me some level of optimism is that the history of humanity is that kind of the mother of invention, necessity being the mother of invention. Yeah, and so the thing is, once the government, once any type of thing is trampling on something you need, like security, defense, or freedom, you'll be innovative and you'll figure things out. So, for instance, after Edward Snowden leaking all the stuff about how the NSA is across all the different social media companies, and they're able to watch you through webcams and phones and everything else like that. A lot of companies heard that, and because people started complaining, and so now, like, you can go online and you can find webcams that actually have a privacy shutter or have a hardware cutoff switch on the webcam itself.
Mm-hmm.
You've got this. There's a company called I think it's Purism, or maybe that's the brand that has a laptop, and then they've got a smartphone that they've been working on, and a few other things where they have hardware switches for the network connectivity, the microphone, and everything else. Because on my own personal laptop, I have privacy shutters over the webcams. But just because you're making sure that no one can see through the webcam doesn't mean that they can't still monitor you through a microphone if your device is hacked. And so I think what's going to happen is people are either going to want more lo-fi devices that they feel a little bit better about from a privacy standpoint. And I think that was even one of the recommendations of Edward Snowden. Instead of a smartphone, go with a dumb phone.
Yep.
And so that kind of gets us back to the smart cities. I think we'll get to the smart cities, and then people will see how awful it is, and they'll start coming up with ways to counteract the intelligence of those cities, and then they'll also start destroying those smart pieces of infrastructure in order to make their cities dumb again.
Well,
go ahead.
In preparation for that, because we already started this, and we said, number one was license plate readers helping track people who steal goods or steal your kids. All right, so if you were to sell smart cities to me, what would be the other 9 things that would be just glorious, life-changing awesomeness that smart cities and the technologies they bring would, and how it would help society. What like if you were trying to tell me what the greatest
convenient. Life would just be so easy. I mean, that's always been the thing, is make us fat and happy. The bread and circuses coming. It's always just make us fat and happy.
Give
If
them
as
bread
long
and
as
circuses and they'll never revolt. We traded the Coliseum for the NFL stadium.
I've always said that the most wicked thing that a master could do is make his slave comfortable in his chains. Because if you don't know you're in servitude, you don't care. If you're a free range slave, if you're free range, you're kind of cool. So if it's easy, if you're going around and you're fed and you can get into the concert real easy, if you can go and you can push the button with your thumb or do the retina, readers or whatever, and just get into everything. If there's no long lines anymore, if you don't have to go through the DMV, if you can get on the
just get funneled through your cattle cart and let facial recognition. Your face is your ticket to the game.
And also, like, do either of you guys work from home?
Yes.
On occasion, yeah.
All right, I work from home. So, and it's technology's allowed it. It's so much easier to work from home than it is to have to get up, go into the office every day. And it's convenient. All of these things are, I can't even stand the idea. I got offered the other day, a really, probably about a week ago, a really, really, really good job that I would have taken a long time ago and crawled over glass to get. And I was like, but they want me to go somewhere, And I'm like,
I ain't leaving my house.
Yeah, I've got a ranch here and all this. They want me to go do that. So, it's that's the answer to me, is convenience. But
convenience and security. What else?
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Like what else would my perspective on this is, how do we help people become aware of the propaganda that may or may not be out there? Does that make sense?
I want to. Safety is the other thing. Like Ben said, you protect the kids. Everything is always protect the children. It's always for the children. You have
George
to do
Carlin
that for the children.
touched on that, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. Yeah.
So convenience and security, smart cities, and technology of the 2030s will make life so easy and so safe you will never want or worry for anything.
Yeah. And I think one of the other ones is efficiency, and also environment.
The environment.
The environment is a big one, and so having environmental sensors, weather sensors, because one of those things is probably having like a weather station on every single one of those smart poles. Mm-hmm. They can get even more detailed, more granular weather data in order to be able to predict things better in that domain. Also being able to look at like air purity from environmental standpoint and like the type of emissions. If they're able to track all the different cars, like imagine a bridge with these poles nearby, they can track exactly how much throughput is going across the bridge and when certain maintenance or repairs might be necessary based off of the amount of tonnage that's been going across. Also,
more preemptive maintenance on infrastructure than reactive.
Yeah, exactly. Proactive instead of reactive. And then also kind of doing more orchestration with self-driving vehicles, which will also be around the corner. And so in coordination with that, having them take particular routes as soon as something happens, like right now, if someone notices like a cop or notices some traffic or construction, they'll put it on Waze or some other type of app like that. And then you can find out exactly, those things, but someone's actually having to do that manually for the most part. And with this type of system, you might have AI recognize these things from security cameras that are on smart poles all over the place. And so then your self-driving car will receive that information immediately and be able to divert you, and so it'll make traffic a lot more efficient as well. And so that's going to be the other calling. I mean, you got security.
All right, that's it. I'm a statist. Efficient traffic, I'm in. I'm sold.
No, brother. Hey, spontaneous order. You go to China and you watch the motherfuckers drive. They don't obey the traffic. Those traffic laws are like suggestions, and they're not very closely followed suggestions, and they're running 1,000 miles an hour at all the time. There's 6 lanes, and they're just
Hey, I'm all for that. Like, let there be no laws.
There's no traffic law.
I think Mike's actually trying to make the status example of why we need better traffic cops, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't pull over anybody, but that would be better. You're right. They don't. Nobody in China, and well, I mean, I can't say all of China, but in Beijing and in Taiwan too, and in Taipei, and in Hong Kong, and in every major city in China I've been to and spent a fair amount of time in, and like the police were they don't care about. In a lot of ways, that communist country had a lot of freedom, and like as far as just walking around, they had no economic freedom. That's why they were like they are, but just civil freedom, just walking around freedom. They had a lot. Nobody cared about the cops. The cops didn't do anything. I saw cops on the side of the interstate as people drove by. There would be on a scooter, a man, a woman, and two kids riding a little bitty scooter. And the woman would be driving the scooter, and she would take and drop off her kids to school and drop off the husband at work. And I mean, a whole family, like it was wild. And there would just be, and nobody cared. There were laws, but nobody followed them. People cared about the PLA, they cared about the army, but the army wasn't out there patrolling traffic. The traffic there was nonstop. There was never a crash. Nobody cared about the traffic laws at all. They cared about efficiency. They cared about getting where they needed to go to, and they were going 100 miles an hour. I mean, they were just like nobody here could handle it. Nobody in America could handle driving the way they drove there. They would just lose their minds. But when you got used to it, you realized it was just constant. It was a constant flow. It was a beautiful thing. I loved it. It was anarchy. It was just the most efficient, beautiful thing I've ever seen, and I loved it so much. And I forgot what we were talking about earlier because I'm just in such heaven right now thinking
smart
about
cities and propaganda, and you're convincing me why we need to allow all this in our life.
Hey, if you're an anti-gunner, another argument in favor of smart cities is if they've got cameras in every single shooting range and monitoring all transportation and everything and all purchases of all materials, then they can kind of figure out who's
that's the big thing.
Preemptively manufactured firearms. But then they can also see who's purchased all those firearms, and then that dream of a universal registry might actually come true for them.
Yeah, it wouldn't even have to anymore. I mean, their thing is they're going to arrest you before you commit the crime anyway. They're going to take you off the street before you have the chance to be the bad guy.
Some Minority Report precog right there.
As terrifying as that is, that's so terrifying to me. That's like the most because then all they have to do is say it, I mean, they don't have to prove anything. They just have to say he was going to kill it, and it's
actually I had a similar
there'll be people begging for it.
I had a similar argument with my brother-in-law around the Thanksgiving, and he was like, "Oh, the government doesn't track everything you purchase." He's like, "I know. I've talked to people. A lot of those gun shops. They don't keep those records. Blah blah blah. What like the government? There's no way the government knows every time you swipe your debit card or credit card and you purchased a pack of bullets or primers or powder or a rifle or a scope or a pistol or if you come on." If you don't think that's tracked by now, I mean, I'm not crazy in that. I don't think. I'm sure somewhere there's a database that says all these debit card numbers have purchased at least one firearm in their life, and this is who it's tied to by the Social Security number.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting though is fortunately for us, just like serial killers, they kind of want some level of recognition for because they're narcissists and they want that recognition on some level. The government and the people in it, sometimes they just can't help themselves. And so, we have what was it, the government's board of disinformation or something like that, which everyone obviously called the Ministry of Truth because that's what it was. And so it's what are they going to call precog? Because we know that they're going to do something like that. They'll come up with something catchy and nice and everything, but everyone's going to be like, yeah, no, it's precog. You're going to start arresting people before they even commit the crime just because you think they're going to.
What's sad to me is that people are going to defend that. So they're going to arrest this guy, and he's like, I wasn't going to do anything, and everybody's going to be like all the mass wearers. They're going to be like, I can't believe you want this guy free. He was going to be the next. He was going to rule the world. You know?
We're already there to some level with the red flag laws. You can already have your weapons confiscated from you just from an allegation.
Yep.
And people do not want to admit that Donald Trump loves to say, take the guns first, you know.
Process later.
Yeah. So one thing that I do want to touch on about this before I forget is, can we start smart cities? I don't know. But if you want to try, you really need to focus on municipal government, because that's where it comes from. And that's been, you know, that's my thing, obviously. So you need to focus on the local level and protect your. If you're in New York City, I'd suggest leaving. But if you're in Miami, if you're in Atlanta, I'd suggest leaving. But if you can go to a small town, if you can get out of there and you can go, there's still a chance, really. There's a chance to go somewhere and make a difference. And you have to care, though. You really have to care. You can walk across and meet 100 people in a day, and I bet you 96 of them could not tell you who's the mayor.
Oh, I bet. Sure.
I mean, I don't know if it's 96%, but I bet it's a lot. And I guarantee if 96% could tell, I mean, maybe it's 70%, but 96% couldn't tell you who's on the school board. 96% couldn't tell you who's on the town council. You know, you have those people. Most of them couldn't tell you who's the sheriff, you know, and the sheriff's a big deal. Like, I want to know who the sheriff is so I could hide. But most people, most people don't. And, you know, those things are big deals. And if you can get in and you can get people who will protect your rights and who will, I'm not a constitutionalist, but if you get people who will get in and stand for the Constitution and at least chain the government to the laws that they've created for themselves, then you at least give yourself a chance. You know, you can have gun sanctuary city. Was it you and I that talked about that, Sam, or was it me and you, Ben, or was it me and somebody else?
I mean, we've talked about Second Amendment sanctuaries versus sanctuary cities and the differences before, but I feel like we've probably all had that conversation at least twice.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, you can have these things, you know, but that's why they don't want you to. Like, it keeps going back to the optics. It keeps going back to hate the orange man or hate the senile man. That's, you know, look at these people that they put up to. I mean, you've got this one guy eating ice cream, rambling around, shaking hands with nobody, and then you've got Donald Trump, who I think is like Caligula, and he would go out and he would declare war on the ocean if it thought it would, you know. So, and that's what how can you not watch that? It's a train wreck, and they want you to watch it. You know, it's crazy. And meanwhile, they're stealing everything from you at home because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, I once said that people ask, you know, or they say that the election happens in November, and that's when everybody votes. And I'm like, no, you don't vote in November. That's just the puppet show that you watch and kind of get caught by. The real voting happens in April, and much like we think other countries don't really get a real right to vote and they're forced to vote a certain way, every single dollar that you end up paying the government, I mean, granted, you've already paid it in April, it's just you putting in your taxes, but the symbology is there in the sense of every single dollar that you're paying is a vote for the government to continue what it's doing. And we all know that if you try to not vote that way, at the end of the day, they will put a gun to your head to ensure that you do. And so,
your house and
it doesn't matter if you've got an elephant or a donkey in the White House.
Yeah, and so they will continue extracting that power from every single one of us in order to do what they want. Mm-hmm. And so, to your point, we do need to understand when they're pissing on us and telling us it's rain, right? Yeah. And we need to be aware, because the thing is, I understand the draw of a smart city. I remember thinking at one point how cool it would be, because as a person who loves technology, loves data science, I see all the possibilities of all the good that you could legitimately do with it. But also from just my political knowledge and how these systems end up being used, I have that healthy fear of knowing, you know, it will be abused. And I mean, I've once said that the consequences of abuse should not prohibit general use. Is one of my favorite sayings. And and so I try to keep that in mind, because that's one of the arguments that people try to use when it comes to guns, is that, well, when people abuse their right to a gun and shoot up a school full of elementary age children, then you should realize maybe it's not worth having guns at all. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. So I think that in some way the smart cities will come, but what will end up needing to happen is that individuals and
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and like private organizations will need to figure out how to handle the data that they're collecting appropriately, and then people will also figure out ways to prevent that data from being collected on them, whether it means wearing masks and going into big buildings to launder themselves.
I'm getting a fucking head-to-toe Chewbacca costume.
Me too. Can you believe that the government's been trying to make us mask ourselves for 2 years, and Sam did it in an hour and 15 minutes? We're all
Bro, he didn't convince me to just mask. I'm looking for Chewbacca costumes right now.
Right. That's funny. I was just going to do that next episode. Just go up with Chewbacca. The problem, I agree. It's funny because I was about to say the exact same thing about it, and there's a lot of good. You're right.
Yeah.
Because something bad can happen. If you dismiss everything because something bad could happen, you can never have a steak because you might cut yourself with a knife. You can't. You're right. And the answer is private company and private individuals. The problem even there, though, is this was the whole thing that got lost during the Twitter and the COVID debates. Everybody's like, well, it's a private company. But it's not a private company when they're an arm of the government. And it's not when they're taking money. So the only way it can work in a reasonable way, in a safe way, and then if you can take government money and in corporatism, and you can have private enterprise and capitalism, then it can work beautifully, because as one tries to do something bad, another one's going to come up and do something better. You can't, in a free market, you can't really have a monopoly, and you can't have this evil empire. You can only have that with government prop-ups. But when the mafia props them up and you have pretend competition, then you're going to have what we have, and it's because it's all about control. That is the end answer. So how do you keep government money out of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a good question. I think one consideration. So we see this across the economy, that the government ends up picking winners and losers, and it distorts the economic incentives. And so when it comes to smart cities, obviously they're very costly to implement. But I would say one of the things that we should try to advocate for is making sure that the economic costs are distorted as minimally as possible, so that if something bad does happen, like torts and other types of damages, like if you're collecting footage and you're selling it, and that footage is being used to real-time track someone, and then they end up getting murdered using that information that you're providing, are you culpable in some way, and allowing the courts to figure that out? Obviously you weren't the one that murdered it. However, if you're providing the information the murderer used, etc., we already have plenty of laws around like negligence and ability that's incidental. And so the thing is, the government's going to try to make it so that, obviously, kind of like they have qualified immunity on things. It's like, I didn't know that you couldn't do it.
Right.
So it's like, oh, how are we supposed to know on that particular one? I mean, you have to be careful, because at the same time, that's the same argument they've also again used on guns. In the sense of, well, should the people who sold the firearm to the killer be culpable? And that puts every single gun dealer or gun manufacturer on notice.
Right.
So it's certainly a difficult path to figure out, but there's definitely ways. Like I said, I remain optimistic, but I agree. If people really evaluate it, I think on a whole, the juice is not worth the squeeze. And so if they get involved, like you said, Mike, into their local politics, try to vote down these measures for sure. It's more than likely not worth it or at least give humanity some more time to mature first before giving them these tools, because I think that's kind of also been my thought when it comes to nuclear weapons. Yes, they were going to, it's just science. It's something that we would have figured out, but my fear is that we figured it out too soon.
Right.
And the humanity itself has not grown up and matured enough to handle these weapons. And so, like, you wouldn't give a gun to a kid, you shouldn't give a smart city to a government.
That's a great statement. I love that. I'm optimistic as well. I think that we have. I think we're in a weird stage in history. I think we're probably the most comfortable we've ever been. I think a lot of our problems and a lot of the problems in society can be traced to actually being like you said earlier, we're designed to rebel. I think we're designed to overcome challenges. And so we create a lot of challenges for ourselves because we don't really have a lot right now. I think, I see celebrities who I used to think that they were being disingenuous, but I think that they really just don't know any better. Like, they'll be fighting for women's rights like it's 1950. They're looking for these things that they're in the wrong time. They're looking for a fight, but it's already been won, so they don't really know what to do. And it's like, in the 60s, Jim Morrison was arrested and persecuted and lost his career because he pulled out his penis on stage in Miami. And now that would seem like a children's show. I mean, it'd be so tame, because there are so few barriers left to cross. So you go to all these extremes, right? So I think that we've become we're at a very comfortable place, and we're at a very soft place in society. And whatever's going to happen next is going to happen next. But I'm optimistic because I was in. Can you see my fingers? I'm sitting here playing with a pen and the $6. I'm turning into a Smurf. But I was out and I was camping the spring before COVID. I spent camping in Wyoming and in Yellowstone and around Yellowstone, and it was the most magical experience of my life. I was out there by myself for a couple of months, and it was just gorgeous and beautiful, and the greatest thing that it was even better than the cars in China.
I was just about to ask, which one's at the top, China with the cars or Yellowstone?
Nothing I've ever done compared to camping in Yellowstone. And I was walking, and there's a river, and in the middle of the river is this huge rock, right? And it's huge, and it's real tall. And there's no dirt on either side, and there's no anything. And it's just this rock in the middle of the river. And growing out of that rock is a tree. How did that tree take root? My point is, when life wants to live, it finds a way. And we go through cycles in humanity. We go through, they say strong men create an easy society. Yeah, and then good times create weak men. And it cycles on through, and it really, everything does cycle, and it does. You're gonna have this thing where it's the collapse. There's gonna be a collapse. You're gonna have this beautiful this. It's all gonna happen. It's gonna fall, and then after it falls, there's gonna be a tree growing out of a rock, and I hope on top of that tree is or on top of that rock is somebody holding a black flag, because just next time we go around, let's just don't start any more countries. Let's just be people.
Let live.
Right. So
anyway.
I agree. Well, I think we've nailed all the bad on smart cities. I mean, it just sounds hell. Like, Elon, I need you to pick up my tweet, bro.
No, it doesn't. No, Sam's right. No, there's so much good in it. You can. I quit drinking, but if I was
you guys are the optimists, I'm clearly not here.
No, if I was still a drinker, man. Like, I was thinking about this. There's somebody that we all know. I'm not going to mention her name, but she's real into like progressive libertarianism, right? So she's real into, and so she's real big into public transportation. And I was thinking about this as we were going on, like how people are going to fight for all the conveniences that smart cities will have, because I was thinking of how people will right now be like, oh my God, come and steal my money. Just give me public transportation, because you can get drunk. If you have self-driving cars, You can go out, get loaded, have the greatest time, not have to worry about anything, get in your car, program it, and get home. And you think about all these,
a
kids.
$35 to $50 Uber wasn't cheap enough. We're gonna go buy $60,000 self-driving cars.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the reasons I don't drink anymore is because one of my favorite things in the world to do is drink and drive. I love to drink and drive, and I am not. I do. I love to. This is a true story. It's a true story. It must have been 10, 12 years ago now. I had a
That's the
Mustang.
statute of limitations, right?
Oh, I got arrested. I had a. I don't need the statute of limitations. I had this Mustang. I had this really, really fast Mustang, right? And it was built, and it was a cool car. And I got off the interstate, and I was drinking. I was driving around, and I was drinking. And I got off the interstate up in Odenville, Alabama. I don't know if you guys know where that is, up in St. Clair County.
Nope.
And it's on the way to Atlanta, and so on 20, and so, and yeah, it's pretty up there. And I got off at the there's a Chevron, and I drove through the parking lot, and I saw the cop sitting there, and I was like, "Fuck, he's gonna pull me over." I'm not doing anything wrong, but I have this car that looks this way, and he is a small town cop in the middle with nothing to do. And I'm going to get pulled over. So I pull up, and I wasn't really drunk. I'm a wild man. I was a wild man. Really, really a wild man. And I pull up, and I stop, and I go into the store so it doesn't look suspicious. And I come out of the store, and I get my car, and I go to the stop sign, and I stop at the stop sign, come to a complete stop. I mean, I did everything by the book because I know he's there watching me, right? He turns on the lights, and I said, fuck. The interstate's right there. Bam, I'm gone. So I pull it down, and I take off. And I'm driving, and he comes after me, man. And I'm like, this car's fast, right? So I go, it's a 6-speed. So I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I get at 140, 150, 160. 160 is where the speedometer tops out. That's where the needle goes. I put it on cruise control. I'm going cruise control, 160 miles an hour down the interstate. I have a pint of Jim Beam and a half case of beer. And I'm drinking, and I'm listening to music, and I look up in my rear view every now and again, and I keep seeing lights. I'm like, damn, I didn't think they'd follow me if I was going this fast. And I'm going 40, probably 40, 50 miles. I went a long way. They threw the spike strip out. I didn't know they did though, because I had run flaps. And so finally, I didn't see lights behind me anymore, and there's a rest area up ahead. And I pull off into that rest area, right? And so I'm like, I'm just going to ditch my car. They can come get my car. They can't prove who was driving it. So I'm just going to ditch my car. I'm going to go hide in the woods all night, whatever. They're waiting on me at the rest area though. And so I'm like, damn. So they're like, get out of the car. All of them are there waiting. And so I get out and I run, and I'm wearing cowboy boots, and there's this hill, and down, like it's up on top of a hill, and there's this, and so I run, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run across the interstate and hide in the woods, because they'd have to. It would have been really hard for them to find me. My drunk mind thinks, and so I'm running down this hill, drunk as hell, and my cow. And I've just been driving for a long time. And really, the reason I pulled at the rest area is because I ran out of beer, and so there was no reason to keep driving. I didn't have any music. I didn't want to keep listening. So
I'm out of shit to drink. I've listened to all my favorite songs. Fuck it.
I'm out of everything to drink. I might as well ditch my car. And so. And I'm running down the hill, and I trip over my cowboy boots, and I roll down the hill, right? And they're standing there, guns just lined up. But I'm like, and I'm just, spread eagle. I'm like, well, I guess whatever, kill me. I don't know what you guys are going to do. I hate you. And so they come and they put me in the back of the car, and I'm thinking I'm going to jail for 30 years, man. I'm thinking I'm in. That's why I didn't stop a long time ago. I mean, once I made the decision to go, I'm like, I got to go. I'm thinking
the evasion.
Yeah. So he comes, and the one cop, he gets in my back car, and he's like, I was like, how much is it going to cost me to get? I was like, are they going to give me bail? And he goes, yeah, you're going to get bail. And I was like, well, how much is it going to be? And he's like, well, I don't know exactly. He goes, it's not going to cost as much as your tires. And I was like, what are you talking about? My tires are fake. He goes, no, I've got those Pirellis. He goes, those are expensive tires. And I was like, my tires are fine. He goes, no, dude, you ran over the spike strip. And I was like, oh, I didn't know. I mean, it didn't. He's like, yeah, because you got the run flats. He goes, yeah, but they were going to blow out not too far from here. And I was like, oh, wow. They arrested me for reckless driving, for DUI, for attempting to elude, I think is what it was. And I went now. This part, I'm glad the statute of limitations is up. So I went to court, and I was going to fight it, man, but I was going to plead not guilty because I. And if you're watching this and you go to municipal court, always plead not guilty. If you didn't hurt anybody, always plead not guilty and make it go to district court, because just at least make them earn it. But in this case, I was scared. I was real scared. You know, I wasn't. Anyway, I got there and it was they had forgot about the reckless driving charge. All I got, and they forgot about the evading. All I got was
just the DUI.
All I got was a DUI. I have the tickets. I had the tickets that said, when they released it, that said the reckless driving and the evading, and which was a misdemeanor. My bail was like $600. They came and bailed me. Yeah, it was a. I had to go to court, and then I had to go. I wasn't allowed to drink for a couple of months. I had to call in. They tell me your color is yellow, and so I'd go in and I'd have to pee, and they would tell me if I had been drinking or not, and if I have been, they would have kept me, and since I didn't, they let me go home. But yeah, that was the whole thing. I had to do that for a couple of months, like 60 days, and then that was it. And pay. I think it cost me $600 to bail out, and then a couple of $100 in fines on top of that. And because they forgot all those other charges, because it was a real small town. It was on paper.
So part of me thinks maybe they forgot it because they enjoyed the fun time that you gave them, because we all know, like, if you're a cop and you're just like sitting doing nothing in the middle of nowhere, but then a guy runs from you going over 100 miles per hour, you're like, okay, you're going to give me a story, you're going to give me a night that I won't forget, and then you didn't try to shoot at him, so it's like, all right, we'll throw the small book at you this time.
Maybe, but I don't think that.
I'm going
to win for that. What's funny is it was paper though. Like it was all like it wasn't on a computer. You would think it was, but no, it was just. It was. Anyway, if the Odenville cops watching, you got me, I guess. But yeah,
he's still running to this day. Don't catch him.
I can't remember what made me tell the story now. There was a reason I told it.
Well, maybe if they're not using paper documents anymore and everything's better and automated, they wouldn't have forgotten those additional charges.
Oh yeah, that's what maybe. So no, people will definitely. So if I could get around and just drive around all night and like not have any risk of going to jail, then and not have any risk of hurting anybody, then yeah, sure, I would go spend the money to do that. An Uber is one thing, but like he's not going to let me put on Waylon Jennings on the radio. And
I don't know, man. I've had some pretty bomb-ass Uber drivers
and drive me around all night. And I mean, I guess he will, but I'll run out of money.
I think what we may end up seeing is that fewer people might end up actually owning cars. I mean, we've seen this whole thing of you'll own nothing and you'll
be proud of it.
Yeah, and so this kind of similar idea of. And here's the reality is a lot of people don't actually enjoy driving, and we know this because people would rather drink and have a good time. They would rather look at their phone and respond to messages. They would rather do all these things than drive. I mean, if you're on a racetrack, you're not going to be doing those things because you're wanting to drive, but otherwise you're wanting to do all these other things, and driving is more of a thing that's getting in the way or just kind of allowing you to do it. And so yeah, whenever there's problems, yeah, obviously you can blame people all you want, but sometimes it's interesting to actually look at the systems and play what are the incentives, and then figure out if there's a better structure. I mean, this kind of goes back a little bit further in the sense of if the government had not encouraged the car ownership model of America, it's very, I mean, how would it have happened without a lot of the subsidies that went towards building the highway system and everything else, and the bailouts for the automobile industry, et cetera? I think the only way that the transportation system would have worked in a more private free market would have been a lot more trains, to be honest. Trains,
well,
and then
Europe gets by fucking phenomenally. I lived in Germany for... I was stationed there for a while, but total time living there was like a year and a half. And I mean, fuck, we never had a car. Like, I mean, me and my buddies, we'd walk literally 2.5 miles from our barracks to the train station, and the old Bayern Pass was all you needed, man. You get 5 people for €25 anywhere in the state of Bavaria on a train, and it lasted for 24 hours. So literally, we could go anywhere we wanted to in the state.
Yeah, think about like if I want to go visit Ben, if I'm driving, it's going to take, I think, what about 6 hours.
It's about 6.5. Yeah,
6.5 hours of driving, and so I have to be completely involved with that aspect if I want to be safe. And I do a fairly decent job, I'd like to say, not, but the thing is, it would be so much nicer if I could get into a train that was going that entire way. And yeah, I would just probably stop at major cities like Birmingham along the way, but then I could have my laptop with me and work on things like this, or read books or whatever. And that's what I would rather do over the course of 6 hours rather than get a cramp in my leg.
You know what? I don't understand you guys at all. I would rather drive anywhere. I used to drive from LA to here all the time. And you know how long it takes me to drive from LA to Birmingham? 30 hours. 30 hours to drive straight. I would stop in Dallas and sleep at a rest area. I would sleep for an hour and then I'd get up and drive the rest of the way here. And everybody should, everybody shouldn't do that. That's not very fun to drive the 30 hours, but everybody should take that cross country trip one time. Twice. You should do it twice. You should take the lower route. So that's real cool because you leave Birmingham and then you're like, okay, Birmingham, and then it's Mississippi, and then it's Louisiana, and you're moving, man. You're thinking, okay, I'm making some speed, Then you hit Texas. Yeah. and then it turns into Christmas, and then it's New Year's, and then you're still in Texas, and then Valentine's Day. You see the desert, and you go through El Paso, and you drive through. You're actually in Mexico for a little bit. The road that goes from out of El Paso into Arizona, New Mexico. Yeah, into New Mexico is you have to just flip down a little bit, even though it's weird to me because it's a U.S. road, but it is across the Mexican border, and then it comes back to how it winds around. So I never knew what would happen if a band of Mexicans with Chihuahuas came and got you. Like who would have jurisdiction? Yeah. So and then you go into then you go to Arizona, and then you're in LA, whatever. And so it's just a lot of desert. So you need to do it one time and then do it again, taking the top route where you see a lot of different states, and you go through the stovepipe of Texas and go through there. So I think everybody should do those two things once and then stop and never do it again. But I take everything to excess, and I just had to do it like for a lot. But I could have flown all those times and been here in a couple of hours. But I'm
taking the northern route. I did Pittsburgh to Tulsa, to Flagstaff to Barstow. It was my one cross country that way, and then we did when I left Alaska 7 years ago soon.
Yeah.
And we did Fairbanks all the way to Gulfport. And you ever need someone to drive, man? I'll give you my dad's number. That I woke up in Iowa with like 90-mile-an-hour gusting winds in my truck with my dogs tranquilized in the back that the vet gave because they wouldn't shut up, and the trailer's just going like this, and we're doing 90 through Iowa, and I'm just like, I'm going back to bed.
When I moved to California, the girl I was moving to California with, she had cats. I'm not a cat person, but she was a cat person. So she had these 2 cats, and we were driving across country with cats. And then it was a ridiculous thing to do, to drive across country with cats. Cats don't like cars. And so, yeah. So, and she's a lunatic, and I'm a lunatic, and these cats are lunatics. And here we are, just these crazy people in a U-Haul. And so we finally had to give the cats drugs, right? And put them to sleep. And so somewhere around Mississippi, we put the cats to sleep, and then they'd wake up and we put them to sleep again and lose, So we stopped at this roadside motel and to spend the night. And so I think it was in Louisiana, and it was like an Indian guy running, and it was just a real nice guy. And so, but there's a big sign that says no pets, right? And so we have these tranquilized cats, and they've been tranquilized for the whole day. So we sneak them into the motel, because I gotta sleep, So we take them to the hotel, and we let them out because they're tranquilized when we go to bed. But they had been asleep for hours and hours, so they wake up with all this, and they're bouncing off the curtains, and I'm knocked out. And so,
Oh man.
So I go to check out the next day, and he's like, "Dude, what's with the cats?" And I was like, "What cats?" And he's the ones that were swinging off the curtains. And I was like, "Sir, I don't know what you're talking about. There were no cats." He's like, "Whatever, man." He just like, "Here's the key." It was so funny. He's like, they were swinging off the curtains and climbing down. Anyway, so yeah, I can relate. I want to go to Alaska though. I've never been.
Oh, dude, I told my wife, my mother-in-law, my parents, is like the only reason I didn't try to convince my wife to move back when I got out of the military was just for what it would do to my kids, and 'cause,
Yeah.
I mean, when me and her came home, one Christmas, Christ, we had a companion fare ticket, and between the car rental, the flights, and baggage fees and bullshit, and this isn't even hotel or anything, or food or presents or anything. It was literally almost $5,000 for us to fly home, and that was in the 2010s, like 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. So I can only imagine what the hell it would cost now.
No, I can't imagine. I told you that I was in Wyoming, right? So that was the spring before COVID, and when I was up there, I just fell in love, and I was going to go to. I was like, man, now that I'm here, I want to drive through Canada. I mean, through Alaska, and through Canada and go to Alaska. And so I hadn't had my passport. I lost it a long time ago. I think in a car I sold or something. I must have left it in there like a long time ago. So, and I hadn't been out of the country since I moved back to Alabama. So I had really no need for it. But then I decided when I was up there, it was so beautiful, and I wanted to drive up to Alaska. So I went and ordered my passport. And I didn't remember it took so long to get your passport, but it takes a long time for your passport to come. Yeah, so
Ridiculous.
So my passport came. COVID hit, and my passport came in the mail like the day after Canada shut down. They shut down the border, so I couldn't go, and I was so mad. I was, man, this is ridiculous. I was so furious about it. And so what I did, I drove up to New Hampshire, and I wanted to, I met some Free Staters, and it was cool. It was a real interesting place. The food is, I don't know. I'm not. It was fun. Those people up there love it. It's good for them. So what I did was I decided I was gonna. I drove all the way up to the very tip of New Hampshire, and I wanted to feel what it would be like to be an illegal immigrant. And so I crossed into Canada and went on a hike, and it's a loop. Well, it looks like so. Right when you cross over the border, if you go to the left, it's the entrance to the hiking trail, right? And so if you go straight, it's the same hiking trail, and you can go either way, and you enter the hiking trail. So I went straight and entered it, and I went down, and I went all the way around, and I knew in my mind, when I went in, if I had went left, I could have went to that trail. So I assumed that if I went right, I could go back to the exit, So I'm here hiking this trail, and I realized I've walked around this damn lake like 4 times before I even realized I'd walked around it 4 times. And I'm thinking, and all the signs are in French now, like 3 feet over, they're all in English. I don't read French and everything. And I'm not even supposed to be in this damn country, and I'm lost. I don't know. And so I'm thinking I'm going to be on the news here in a little bit, because they're going to have to come rescue me, because I'm a dumbass. I got lost on a hiking trail. Anyway, some Canadian came in, or somebody came in. I assumed he was Canadian. And I said, no, I was going to speak French for a minute, but I'm going to keep it real. I was like, hey, man, how do I get out of here? I was like, for real, I was so embarrassing. Here I'm a guy that spends all his time in the woods. I'm always in the woods hiking and all this. I think I know some things. And I'm lost on this little bitty border hiking trail. So how do I get out of here? And he's like, he just turns and he points. He's like, the exact same way you came back in. I was like, yeah. That makes sense. I'm so hard trying to figure out how to get that route.
Was it a mount me? Did he have a hat and a horse?
No,
Oh,
he was.
darn.
He was a citizen. If he had been a Mountie, I wouldn't have asked him for help. I would have stayed out there and died.
Oh, Jesus.
You're muted.
I'm muted?
No.
Oh.
Sam.
Sorry, yeah. I said the honorable way to go.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'll take that sword and fall on it.
Oh, Lord.
Ben's crashing out, and
I don't know.
Well, it's been fun, man. I think we sort of ran the gauntlet. If anybody's got anything else they want to talk about, I'm happy to. But otherwise, it seemed like a
No, I didn't even realize that 2 hours went, or almost 2 hours went pretty quick. We're already an hour and 45 into it.
Yeah.
So holy shit.
nice. I hope you'll come back. It was fun.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed it.
And we don't have to remember a topic for next week. We didn't say that tonight. That's a good thing.
That's true. So last week, somebody put up the thing. We said we were going to talk about something this week. And then before the episode was over, Ben's like, I don't remember. And I was like, I don't remember either. We'll just watch the episode and see, but we never did. So what if anybody was really like enthralled to tune in to see whatever the hell they thought we were going to talk about, we will someday catch up to that by accident. Yeah. So just keep watching.
Absolutely. You got any closing anything, Sam?
Not really. I think maybe the closest thing I have is remain optimistic. Humans are known for their ability to adapt, and no matter what the world keeps throwing at us, we can adapt to it, except for a nuclear holocaust. So let's just try to keep that one out of the cards.
Slide that one off the board for now, please.
Hey, also, is this the last one before Christmas, right?
I actually, I mean, if we were to do one next week, it would be in between Christmas and New Year. So yeah, this is absolutely the last one before Christmas.
So Merry Christmas to you guys, and Merry Christmas to everybody watching. But hey, I hope you have an excellent Christmas. Hope you get to spend time with your family. I hope everybody feels loved and gets to stay warm. And I hope everybody will say a prayer and think of the people that are not as fortunate as we are, the ones that are on the streets or in jail. That they're cold, they're alone, they're sad. Think of them. Say a prayer for them. It's all, if you can do more than that, go see them, visit somebody, but at least give a thought, and then take care of yourselves, enjoy yourself, have a great time. So, and thanks for hanging out with me for the past hour, and I've really enjoyed it, guys.
Oh, absolutely. I'll echo Mike's thing, but instead of just saying a prayer for him, we've all got leftovers. We've all got old toys from our kids. We've all got something. Find that family that doesn't have as much. Find that person that doesn't have as much and struggling, and give help them out. Invite them over. Even if you don't invite them over, those 3 extra plates of meals that people aren't going to take, I bet you that single mom down the street with 2 kids would love those 3 plates and have a wonderful ham dinner that she probably couldn't afford to make. So do the right thing and help.
Take human action. Absolutely.
100%. Well, until next week, maybe next week, maybe after New Year's, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that, and because I'm probably going to be fucked up next week.
Oh, we're doing it for sure then. If you are, then we're for sure going to do it. Because no, I don't know if you guys. He'll take his shirt off. He'll be doing all kinds. It's wild. It's funny. Hey.
Well, until next time, I will say next week. Have a good one, y'all.
Good night, everyone. Yeah, I absolutely did. It was very, very cool. Gotcha. Well, sounds good, man. Well, I had a great time. I hope to come back sometime. All right. Thanks, Ben. You take care and have a great night. All right. Bye. I watched the first third. I was able to get through before it's been busy all day shopping.
I got about to say. Tell me when I need to shut up. Bye. Right on. The city of Montgomery is trying to access every camera, private and public. Did you see that? That's actually, I'm watching the video right now. I have it up on my screen. It's silent, but when I looked up, that's what was written across the screen. The city of Montgomery, Alabama is trying to access every private and public camera to gather in personal data to predict the likelihood that an individual will commit a crime and using the data to guide law enforcement decisions.
Hey, how's it going?
What's that? What's the issue?
There we go. Now we're good. I moved a window.
Oh, I don't.
All that work getting everything switched